Lotus Elan, M100 1989 to 1995. The Lotus M100 Elan was launched in August 1989, reviving the Elan nameplate after 14 years. A two-seater convertible sports car with front-wheel drive, designed in-house by Lotus, it featured an engine and manual transmission supplied by Isuzu, and was built with the development and testing resources of General Motors. Around $35 million, about $55 million, was invested in its development, more than any other car in Lotus history. Its design, featuring a fiberglass composite body over a rigid steel backbone chassis, was true to Lotus founder Colin Chapman's original philosophy of achieving performance through low weight, and the name Elan connected the car with its 1960s ancestor. In 1986, the purchase of Lotus by General Motors provided the financial backing to develop a new, small, affordable car in the same spirit as the original Elan, last built in December 1972. A development prototype, the M100, later renamed the X100, had been built a few years earlier, using a fiberglass body designed by Oliver Winterbottom and a Toyota-supplied 1.6-liter engine and transmission. Lotus was hoping to sell the car through Toyota dealerships worldwide, badged as a Lotus Toyota, but the project never came to fruition and the prototype was shelved, although Lotus's collaboration with Toyota had some influence on the design of the Toyota M100. The idea of a small roadster powered by an outsourced engine remained, however, and in late 1986 Peter Stevens's design for the Type M100 was approved and work began by Lotus engineers to turn the clay styling buck into a car that could be built. This process was completed in just under 3 years, a remarkably short time from design to production car. The M100 Elan was conceived as a mass-market car and in particular one that would appeal to U.S. buyers. Consequently, Lotus put an enormous effort, for such a small firm, into testing the car. Over a 2-year period 19 crash cars and 42 development vehicles were built, logging nearly 1 million test miles in locations from Arizona to the Arctic. The Elan was driven at racing speeds for 24 hours around the track at Snetterton. Finally, each new car was test-driven for around 30 miles, 48 kilometers, at Lotus's Hethel factory to check for any manufacturing defects before being shipped to dealers. The choice of front-wheel drive is unusual for a sports car, but according to Lotus sales literature, for a given vehicle weight, power and tire size, a front-wheel drive car was always faster over a given section of road. There were definite advantages in traction and controllability, and drawbacks such as torque steer, bump steer and steering kickback were not insurmountable. This was the only front-wheel drive vehicle made by Lotus. Every model made since the M100 Elan, such as the Lotus Elise, has been rear-wheel drive. The M100 Elan's cornering performance was undeniable. On release, the Elan was described by Autocar magazine as the quickest point-to-point car available. Press reaction was not uniformly positive, as some reviewers found the handling too secure and predictable compared to a rear-wheel drive car. However, the Elan's rigid chassis minimized roll through the corners and has led to many critics describing it as the finest front-wheel drive bar none. Unlike the naturally aspirated version, the turbocharged SE received power steering as standard, as well as tires with a higher ER speed rating. The M100 Elan used a 1,588cc double overhead camshaft, DOC, I-416 valve engine, sourced from the Isuzu Gemini and extensively modified by Lotus. A third generation of this engine was later used in the Isuzu Impulse, which produced 162 horsepower, 121 kilowatts, in turbocharged form. 0 to 60 miles per hour acceleration time was measured by Autocar and Motor magazine at 6.5 seconds, and a top speed of 137 miles per hour, 220 kilometers per hour, was recorded. Significant differences in the Isuzu Lotus engine from the original include a new exhaust system, rerouted intake plumbing for better thermodynamic efficiency, improved engine suspension, and major modifications to the engine control unit to improve torque and boost response. Almost all models featured an I-HIT turbocharger. Two variants were available at launch, The 130 bhp, 97 kilowatts, 132 PS, Elan 1.6, retailing at $17,850, and the 162 bhp, 121 kilowatts, 164 PS, Turbo say, $19,850. Initial sales were disappointing, due to the debut of the more affordable nostalgic Mazda MX-5, which was arguably similar in concept to the 1960s Elan, in contrast to the M100's deliberately futuristic cant. The Elan was very expensive to make. The cost to design and produce the dashboard alone was more than the total cost of the Excel production line, and sales figures were too low to recoup its huge development costs. Altogether, just 3,855 Elans were built between November 1989 and July 1992, including 129 normally aspirated, non-turbo, cars. A mere 559 of them were sold in the US, featuring a Stage 2 body which had a different rear boot spoiler arrangement together with a lengthened nose to accommodate a USA-compliant crash structure and airbag, and 16-inch wheels, optional in most markets, standard in the US, instead of 15 inches on the UK model. A coupe version of the Elan, to replace the Excel, had also been in the pipeline, but this too was shelved, and there was no direct successor to the Excel, which was also discontinued in 1992.